If you are reading this right now, consider it a miracle. I have absolutely no idea if this will post or not, because every action that I take here, though I'm not quite sure where here is. However, I think I'm technically in the same town in which I've always lived. Only seems to have about a 50% chance of actually working. It's been about 9 or 10 hours since I've been missing, if you want to call it that, and I have absolutely no idea where to even begin working on returning. So I figure I have all the time in the world to share my story. I live in a small town in the northeastern corner of Kansas that is 45 minutes south of 3 major cities, in one of which I attend a private school, rather than going to my town's small public high school. When I say small town, I mean the everybody knows everybody. I had 8 kids in my grade town that had only recently got a renovated grocery store and has maybe 3 nice restaurants. 4 if you count the Wendy's down the street from my house. My town isn't shabby by any means. We even have a nice little town square, with a beautiful public park and pretty white benches. But there sadly aren't a lot of families that live here anymore. The public schools have a substantial number of students, but I went to a private Catholic grade school. And because my father had been teaching at a college prep school in one of the nearby cities since I was born, I now attend that school, which has practically been my home since I had attended preschool and their nursery when my parents were working. All of my friends went to attend the public high school in our hometown, but I still hang out with them on most weekends, and I have plenty of friends at my own school, so I'm not super unhappy with anything. The only difference between the school that I attend and the school back at home is that every year on January 10th, my little town's teachers watch each student in the hallway extra carefully to ensure that he or she makes it to class safe and sound. The principal monitors the building with newly installed security cameras and frequently checks in with students to make sure each and every one is accounted for. Mothers and fathers cling to their children and never let them out of their sight, only letting them travel to and from school, in groups of course, if they even let them go that day. It started 20 some odd years ago, I've been told, with an 8th grader named Kent who went to the public middle school in my town. Though the woods here aren't very dense, and are located in the outskirts of town only, the story goes was that he somehow got lost in the woods a couple of minutes after school would have let out. His body was never found, even after a 3-month investigation, although the authorities did find a single notebook with his name written on it near the entrance to the woods where he was likely lost in. This very first incident is probably the most bizarre one, considering how it is nearly impossible to get lost in what could be the thinnest woods in the US, in a town only a couple of miles wide. But it certainly wasn't the only one. His parents eventually moved away because of the stress the town gave them, and other families started to gradually do the same. The following year, another 7th grade boy went missing from the same public middle school. He attended school the whole day, but when his parents came to pick him up, he was gone. Some of the teachers said they saw him step into a car that drove off towards where his house was located, but none of them were able to give a clear enough description of the car to the police for them to figure out who it belonged to. Both of his parents drove silver-colored cars, and the car that the boy stepped into was also described as kind of silver. But other than that, not everybody was paying attention to every car a child stepped into, since this was during a time when our town had a lot of residents and therefore a lot more children. After this, a senior in high school named Clarissa was stopping for breakfast at an IHOP with her friends before school. Apparently she went to the restroom. Her friends went to check on her and discovered that she had completely vanished. It wasn't until another 8th grade boy named Jonah went missing on his walk to school in the morning that people started saying, "Gee, we sure have had a lot of missing persons these past few years." And others started to respond, "Isn't it weird how these happen only on January 10th?" Last year, it was a sophomore girl who went to the public high school. Even though January 10th had caused widespread panic and several safety measures to be implemented, she never showed up to a sixth period after going out to the courtyard to enjoy lunch with her friends. But what happened 2 years ago really gave me a shock. A girl I went to grade school with, yes, the only 8 per grade private school, named Christina, disappeared early in the morning before school, with her bedroom window showing signs of forced entry. Christina and I hadn't been best friends, but we were close enough due to the small size of our class. I hadn't hung out with her in 2 years, but the disappearance really hit too close for comfort. January 10th never really freaked me out like it did the rest of the town. I'm the only child in my family, so my parents had a close watch at me and also instilled in me the strength of responsibility. And I went to a completely different school, 45 minutes away from my town for most of the day. Most of the time, I wouldn't even notice why everybody else was so freaked out, until later that night when we eventually got the sad news. Recently, I've known every single person who has disappeared, and these events have hurt me deeply, but I've never been one of the conspiracy theorists who believe they are any more than a coincidence. After people started noticing the strange phenomenon, people started moving away, fearing for their children's safety. Many older couples stay, since this seemed to only happen to people from 13 to 18. But several other families with children also stayed because of the high quality of life, the low cost of living, and the extremely low crime rate. When I was little, several journalists from nearby cities would come to report on the bizarre happenings on January 10th. But as this had been going on for quite a while, they have since stopped. Not many people talk about this day throughout the year, preferring to keep it quiet so not to create unnecessary paranoia or deter people from moving here. But when that day rolls around, you can pretty much sense how on edge the town is. My January 10th started out as normal as possible. From what I can remember, nothing was out of the ordinary. I woke up, ate some cereal, got dressed, and I brushed my teeth. I never noticed anything strange or different that shifted from one moment to another. But as I was in the middle of putting on my makeup, a bottle of foundation in one hand and a tube of lipstick in the other, I heard my mom calling my name downstairs. I yelled back, but she didn't seem to hear me, and proceeded to call my name even louder. "Dad's almost ready to go. Are you ready?" I yelled back, "Just a minute," and I rolled my eyes, still taking my time. But my mom didn't seem to hear me. "Julia," she called, and soon my father started calling my name as well. Understandably, this made me pretty mad, as to my door was already open, meaning their deaf asses should be able to hear me. So I barged out of my room and I yelled, "I said I'm coming!" But no one acknowledged what I said, continuing to stare at their phones and occasionally call my name. I grabbed my phone from out of my shirt pocket and I texted them that I would be down in a minute and to please answer me like a human person, as they stormed back into the room. Message not delivered. Huh? That's kinda weird. But it wasn't completely abnormal, so I tried to send it again. But my message yielded the same disappointing result. I figured that I would just get ready and meet them downstairs when I was done. But they kept calling my name, leading me to get increasingly annoyed. Eventually my mother came upstairs and walked straight into my room. "Julia, come on, let's go." She paused. "Julia?" I whirled around. "What?" My mother began to look slowly around my room. "Julia, where did you go? Are you using the restroom?" "Mom, I'm literally right here. Drop the act." I reached out to shove her. Damn, this woman's been working out. My mother's muscles were extremely tight, and she didn't budge an inch. She went over to the bathroom and flung open the door while I stared at her in confusion. This continued on for a good 5 minutes. I would continue to get annoyed and yell at her, as she pretended to look around the upstairs floor for me. "Tom," she called. "She's literally not up here." I heard my dad disappear down the basement. "Julia." At this point, my mother began to get frightened, and I thought that she was going to hyperventilate. I laughed, thinking this was some kind of strange joke, so I tried to pick up a Kleenex box and throw it at her. But strangely, it wouldn't budge. It was as if the box had been glued to my desk and suddenly been fortified with the strongest material known to man. I tried to pick up other objects, but they all had the same result. "What the hell is going on, Mom?" She didn't hear me. I figured that she would snap out of it once I had crossed the profanity border, right? My parents began to grow very frantic. "Tom, we gotta call someone." "Mom, I'm right here. Just stop this, I have to work on a project before school this morning." My dad lunged for the landline. In an act of desperation, I flung my hand out and I struck my father across the cheek. It was as if his face were made of metal. Oh shit. Something seriously wrong was happening here. I ran back upstairs and I tried to grab various objects. My laptop, backpack, lamp, faucet, soap, the light switch, makeup wipes, mascara, all of my toiletries, and everything on my desk wouldn't move. But somehow I could still pick up my foundation bottle, my lipstick, and my toothbrush. I shoved all of my items in my jacket and skirt pockets and I ran back downstairs. My father was on the phone with who I assumed to be someone from the police department, and I considered the possibility that maybe my parents weren't playing a cruel prank after all. I continued to yell and scream and pick up things, but nothing moved and no one heard me. I'm pretty sure I started to cry out in frustration. After a few minutes, my parents opened the door to step outside and call out for me, hoping I was still somewhere in the area. Figuring that it wouldn't do any more harm, I dashed out of the door, eager to see if I could touch anything outside. As I walked down the street, I pulled on my phone to see if I could call anybody else. I still had excellent cell service, but whenever I tried to call any of my friends or even 911, it simply wouldn't work. I couldn't post on Snapchat or Instagram, but I could access my email, receiving only, not sending, and some other websites. Panicked, I called out up and down the street, but no one ever heard me. And that was when I saw her. She had just turned a corner, so I sprinted down the street to chase after her. Christina! The girl who had not changed since I had seen her years ago looked absolutely shocked, almost as if she wasn't expecting anybody to see her. "You're back!" I cried, hugging her, delighted that I could shake her and move her and interact with her. Christina looked at me with a sad look in her eyes. "Oh, honey, no." I gave her a confused look. "I came here to help this year's and that." She paused and my jaw dropped. It was January 10th. "Christina, what the hell's going on?" "Come with me," she beckoned. I had no choice but to follow her through the town and out into the outskirts. Along the way, she explained to me that everything I had experienced this morning was completely typical of January 10th, and was similar to what had happened to the other 23 kids back at home when they had disappeared. I was shocked. That meant there were several kids who hadn't seen their families in over 20 years, living day to day exactly like this. Christina assured me that time would begin to pass differently the longer I lived in the state. "What about these?" I asked her, showing her the contents of my pockets. You likely had them on your person the exact moment that you disappeared, she explained. And good thing you keep your phone on you. I looked at it dejectedly. Will it even work? Christina smiled and pulled out her own phone, saying that it had been stuck on 84% battery for the past 2 years. She could access the internet and post on websites that weren't directly related to the town or its people, and that gave me a glimmer of hope. The internet really shocked the oldies, she said, but I was so wide-eyed and looking around at my now distant surroundings. We eventually reached a clearing in the woods with a sturdy treehouse perched in one of the large trees. Jackson Sabata was up here one Saturday in January. His parents went looking for him and never found him, despite him literally coming face to face with them. It turns out since he disappeared here, we all can use it. It's got a whole bookcase and everything. I'll show ya. I saw kids my age sitting at the base of the tree reading books, chatting or looking at their phones, which gave me a sense of relief. Jessie, the girl from last year, actually had her laptop on her, so we can use that too. Christina explained that most of the kids with technology used it to reach out to the outside world for help or research on this phenomenon, and she encouraged me to do the same. So here I am, sitting in the treehouse, typing this on my phone and hoping that one of you can help us. So far, we've found that this also happens to kids on January 10th in a small town near Alberta, Canada. But we still have no idea what the significance of the 10th is and why this is happening. We've made contact with a few professors at universities, but none of them live in Kansas or Missouri and can help us. The first few hours here I spent crying. I've met most of the kids here, and they really are nice and welcoming, but I really miss my family, and I don't know what's going on back in my home. If anybody out there knows my school or more importantly my parents, tell them I don't know where I am and to please come get me. Especially since Christina almost forgot to mention the beasts that come out at night.